Okay, so hello everyone. When violence is committed or overlooked by the state, it also amounts to violence against women. That means you are ignoring the acts of violence or abuse that are happening against a person. Since ignorance on such matters can also result in more such incidents because no such deterrence is set up that would defer or deter the other people, the like-minded people, from repeating the act in future. If you set an example of a stricter punishment or sanction or something or penalty whatsoever, then it may happen that in future the like-minded people or the husbands would not do such acts because they will be in fear of the prosecution that would follow if there is a complaint against them, right? So ignorance or overlooked by the government, like let those things happen, we know we don't need to make a law on it, or we don't need to recognize the statistics or the number of cases which are arising on such an important issue. Fine. India is a party to declaration on elimination of violence against women. Is a party to means it has signed and it agrees to what all the provisions of this convention are. 1996 UN Commission on Human Rights created UN model legislation. Model legislation is something you may have come across the model answers for a question, right? So model means what? As an example, this should be your answer, right? These all things you should include. So model legislation is also something ki this is an example of the legislation on domestic violence, such and such provisions should be included. This is something which is set as an ideal for the purpose. Okay. Objective of serving as drafting guide for comprehensive legislation on domestic violence at state level. State level means at the country levels for the different countries, of course according to the prevailing circumstances and conditions in the particular countries. Some of the rules or laws may vary according to the societal status of the people as well, but that is a secondary thing. At the primary stage, what all would be required, or what should be the guidelines or the basic provisions that should be included in the legislation, for that it served as a guide, as a model answer to your questions serve. Fine. You can draw the analogy with the model answer. It defines domestic violence. It over here refers to the UN Convention on Human Rights, and the UN model defines domestic violence as all acts of gender based. Why gender based? Because it's against a particular gender. This I had already told you in the previous video. Physical, psychological, sexual abuse, this also I have explained, by a family member against women in the family. So that can be within the family on women. Ranging from, that means it has the variety of simple assaults. Simple assaults से ही हर चीज़ की start होती है ना. Everything starts from zero, so everything starts from a simple assault. Only one slap or something that you are taunting or shouting at her, so that is the simpler level, and it keeps on aggravating day by day. It keeps on increasing and it gets more serious with time because the person, the basic tendency of women or whatever they are taught is that you have to adjust by staying silent. So they adhere to those taunts, threats, and those anger, insults from the peoples, just to save their marriage and matrimonial house. So in that case, as I told you, humiliating verbal abuse, so that comes under this. Stalking, that means you go into the room of your daughter-in-law every time and you are just keeping an eye on her, that where she's going to the bathroom, what she's doing there, and how much time, why so much time she has taken in the bathroom, what she's doing in the kitchen, what she's cooking for herself, if she wants to eat something. So such stalking, ठीक है, हर एक उसके एक्शन पे नज़र रखना. So it can be simple assaults, then aggravated physical battery means physical beating something. Battery is establishing physical contact with the skin of another, okay, and that can be any act of abuse. Threats, kidnapping, Intimidation, coercion means forcing, stalking as I told you, verbal abuse as I told you. Forcible, unlawful entry means you are forcing her to do something which she is not willing to do, or to enter into a place in which she is not lawfully or legally should be kept or living, but you are forcing her to do that. Fine. Then destruction of property, sexual violence, marital rape, dowry, bride, price related violence. Dowry is what? Price लगाना bride का, वही तो है. So female genital mutilation, violence related to exploitation through prostitution. You are exploiting the body or dignity of the person, that is women, through prostitution. You may have sold her to a brothel house. Fine. Violence against household workers and attempts to commit such acts. So either committing those acts or attempting to commit such acts also include violence. मैंने मारने की कोशिश करी. Suppose I had attempted to kill her, but I had not actually killed her. But that attempt can also be a crime. Sometimes it can also be as graver or as heinous as the commission of the act itself. Laws in India on prevention of violence against women. First is Domestic Violence Act 2005. Prior to 2005, the concept of domestic violence was not recognized under the Indian law as a special category. That means it was not considered to be a special kind of offense. Whatever it was under. Prior to 2005, domestic violence was not recognized as a special offense or a different offense. All it was as considered under hurt, grievous hurt, or battery under IPC. Okay, so as such a special legislation on such offenses or such cases, and the concept evolved by this act only. So why the parliament was forced, or what made the parliament reach to the point of establishing a legislation for this purpose? Because the number of cases were increasing and the situation was going more serious only. Whatever the loopholes in the law were, or the correct prosecution was not happening under the IPC, because what IPC says, even a stranger can do batteries. These are what? Domestic relationships in which the members of the family are involved in the violence against the women of the family, which is again a member. Women are also the member of that family, right? So it is happening within the four corners of a house. And what happens is, women don't complain because reputation of family will get offended, right? It will demean the reputation or the name of the family in the society or amongst the relatives, and the taboo also associated with it. Then maybe that it would result in the separation or divorce of the couple. Then again a social stigma which is attached to such a term called divorce, right? So because of the lack of correct prosecution under IPC of such husbands and their families, or the in-laws, whosoever has done the violence against women, or due to the increasing number of cases of domestic violence, this act was adopted by the Indian Parliament with the objective of providing effective protection to women who are victims of violence occurring within the family or anyway connected with the family sphere. So either it can be that in a matrimonial house, four people are living: mother-in-law, father-in-law, daughter-in-law, and the son. So either those three people are doing the violence on the daughter-in-law, or it may be through some of the distinct or near relative of the husband, or maybe that even when she is in the maternal home, then also violence may be done against her, right? So whosoever is anyway connected, near or far, चाहे जैसे भी connected हो, but it is falling within the category of the family somehow. So how would the women be protected against such people and such acts of their violence? To provide the effective protection and relief to the victims of violence, that was the main aim. Since the name itself suggests protection of women from domestic violence, right? So from the name of the act itself, the objective is clear. The idea of domestic violence was borrowed mostly from the international legal framework. So it happens generally why the countries assigned to the international conventions, or why those guidelines or that model legislation was given, so that even the nations can draw their inspiration or their, the guidelines they can borrow and implement it by making a legislation in their own nation, right? As I've told you the last lecture also. So similarly, on this matter, if there was no legislation, and in fact it was not there in India, so from where it will borrow? From somewhere. India में तो है नहीं, तो कहीं और से जाएगा, and कहीं और से जाना मतलब वो international बन गया. And that international thing is the conventions to which India has signed, or India is a party to, that are CEDAW and the United Nations Declaration on Declaration on Elimination of Violence Against Women, and the model legislation. So from all these three things, it drew the reference or guidelines which were provided, or the framework, and then it made this act suiting with the prevailing conditions of India. The adoption addresses two important concerns. Firstly, the family law reforms of 1980s, like Family Codes Act. Now, Family Codes Act is a legislation which focuses on uniform civil code kind of concept, in which not only Hindus but every religion person or every community can seek relief. Okay, so that's why even this protection of women against domestic violence, that also from the name itself suggests it is a uniform legislation which applies to all the women who are subject of such violence within the family sphere, right? So the family law reforms, like the Family Codes Act, focus more on the need to preserve the family. As I told you in one of my previous lectures when we were doing marriage and divorce, that the main intention of the law of the court is to reconcile the differences, so that the family and the marriage is sustained. They will not dissolve the marriage. अच्छा, you want to dissolve? Okay, fine, जल्दी से divorce granted. ऐसा नहीं होगा. They will try their best till the last resort, till the last nail in the coffin. They will try to save your marriage. Okay. Hence, it does not emphasize on ending violence against women in the private sphere. It helps to address violence occurring in the private sphere. So the Family Codes Act, which focuses on the need or the thing or the practice to preserve the family at all cost. So if they are preserving the family, even when the violence is going on against the family, inside the family against a particular person of the same family, still what their objective is to preserve it. So anyhow they will again reconcile and in what they will say that thoda bahut adjust karo, and to the husband they will say now you will not repeat the act in future, right? Or they will make some they may award some penalties or sanctions ki ऐसा दो जिससे कि आगे तुम ये नहीं करोगे, or you sign a bond, or you do whatever the court's discretion is, it may grant, and then it will ask them to reconcile कि adjustment करो, marriage इतनी जल्दी end नहीं होनी चाहिए, right? But this act PWDVA, it helps to address violence which occurs in the private sphere that was not the ambit of the Family Codes Act. Fine, because it preserves the family, so it will not emphasize that how that violence has to be ended to preserve the family. Preserving the family doesn't mean that one is adjusting and the other is the dominating one, and he or she is subjecting the other person to all sorts of tortures. Fine. Secondly, before 2005, domestic violence against women was considered cruelty and was punishable under criminal law and formed grounds for divorce. So we studied that cruelty is a ground for divorce, right? So it was covered under the criminal law, it was punishable, but not as such that domestic violence special legislation was there. Hence, there was no comprehensive law providing civil remedies. So whatever this domestic relationship is happening, that is a family law matter, right? That means it relates to families, which is a civil case. That should be a civil case. But what were the remedies for it? The criminal ones under IPC. There were no civil remedies. And the Family Codes Act, which was prevalent in that, ending violence was not a part of it, which also ensures that dignity of such wife or women is maintained. Because if she is tortured and then too she is asked to preserve the family, to adjust, then it is at the cost of her dignity under Article 21 of Indian Constitution, right? So the comprehensive law providing civil remedies for such acts of domestic violence was not there. Like there should be some compensation. What will be the civil remedies? Compensation, right? Jail to bhejenge nahi civil mein. So damages, compensation, or monetary relief, or other services that aid women who are the victims of such violence, so that they may be given some sort of compensation or damage that they are able to maintain themselves. ठीक है, or other services that would help for them to rehabilitate or to restore their condition. And hereby I hope that there is no need to explain why this rehabilitation of such victims are required. PWDVA adopts a comprehensive definition of domestic violence. Comprehensive means which is complete in itself. ठीक है, सो सारी चीज़ें उसमें आ गई और अब उसमें कुछ और इंक्लूड करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, विच इज़ कंप्लीट एंड एब्सोल्यूट इन इटसेल्फ. दैट इज़ द मीनिंग ऑफ कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव definition of domestic violence, and includes, now if there is this act protection of women against domestic violence, so it has to define that what is all included under the ambit of domestic violence from which we are aiming to protect the women, right? So that's why the definition is given, and includes physical abuse and other forms of violence within the family that is manifested. Manifested means that is predicted, or that is a probability that such kind of violence can also happen, which forms were mentioned above as well, and affects the women. So affecting the women can be physically, when injury is caused to her, emotionally, psychologically, sexually, and all that will come under the ambit of depriving her from the personal liberty under Article 21. The definition under Section 3 of this Act reads as any act, omission. Act means to do something. Omission means to not do something. Okay. So under this Act, if it is now, if an act is constituting something which is wrongful, that means you should not have done that act. Fine. Then only it will be a crime. No, crime is what? Something unlawful. So आपको वो चीज़ नहीं करनी चाहिए थी. You should not have done that. You should not do murders. You should not commit rape. You should not cause unlawful injury to the other person, right? And if you are doing that, then you should be punishable for the act. So act means something which should not have been done, or which is prohibited to be done by law, but you have done that. Fine. And omission means something which was ought to be done, that was your duty to do, but you have not done that. Suppose in this case, if I take the example of this domestic relationships, suppose the act would be all sorts of violence which are done on the women. That should not have been done. You should treat her also as a human being. You should also treat her as an equal member of the family, and not deprive her of the basic needs. You should not stalk her, that what she's doing, what she's making for herself, right? So she's also a human. She may also have her wants, right? She may also wish someday that I don't want to eat this, I will cook something for myself and then eat. And if you're saying that that is her home also, then she should have that liberty, right? But you are not giving her that. You are actually treating as somebody who has come from some other background, some other family, some other house, right? So that all differentiation अगर है तभी violence हो रही है. If you were treating her as somebody of your own family, you would not have done such acts against her on her, right? So those acts of violence should not have been done, but you have done that. So that is the act. Omission means it was your duty to take due care of her. It was your duty to not do bodily harm on her, but you have done that, right? Suppose it is the duty of husband to take care of the wife, to provide her with the basic necessities, to provide her the maintenance, to provide her food and clothing and whatever she needs, right? Because now husband has to take care, and the wife is the responsibility of the husband, right? So all duties of maintaining the wife comes upon the husband. But if he has not performed his duty. He is neglecting his duties. That is under the omission. Fine. Commission means commit or to do, or conduct. Conduct is behavior of the respondent. Respondent means, see, there are two parties to a civil suit: petitioner and respondent. Petitioner is somebody who has filed the petition. Over here, the victim is the woman. So, of course, she would have filed the petition that such and such acts of violence were done against me. Now I want remedies against it, right? जिसके साथ कोई हादसा हुआ है, जिसके साथ कुछ बुरा काम हुआ है, वही तो विक्टिम है और वही तो कंप्लेंट या वही तो पिटिशन फाइल करेगा ना. सो शी इज द पिटिशनर एंड रिस्पोंडेंट इज हस्बैंड और द इन-लॉज or any other person who has done such atrocity or violence against that women. Fine. So, conduct of respondent shall constitute domestic violence. So, whatever the act, omission, commission or conduct of the respondent is, that will be called or that will fall under the category or the expression domestic violence if it harms or injures or endangers the health, safety. Injures, harms means kuch injury hui. Harm means there was something which has affected her adversely. Right? Endanger means it has put it into a danger, into a dangerous situation. Of the health, safety, life. Limb means some body organ, legs, or well-being, mental or physical, of the aggrieved person, that is the victim, or tends to do so. So either it has injured, endangered or harmed the physical or mental well-being of the person, or it tends to do so, means it is likely that it will result in such harm, and includes causing physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal, emotional abuse and economic abuse. So it would include the physical abuse, sexual abuse. Verbal means by saying हमने कुछ टॉन्स या उस पर बेवजह चिल्लाए जा रहे हैं, उसको कोई काम करने नहीं दे रहे. Emotional abuse, as I gave you that example of taunting her of a dark complexion, right? Economic abuse is that she should be provided due maintenance ताकि उसके जो personal needs हैं वो उसको satisfy कर सके. या अगर आप उसको पैसे नहीं दे रहे हो उस needs को satisfy करने के लिए, तो you yourself do the expenses and provide her with the basic necessities that she needs. Fine. So if you are not providing it for that, then it is economic abuse. Harass, harms, injures, endangers a aggrieved person with a view. With a view means with an aim or with an intention to coerce her. Coerce means force her, or any other person related to her, means somebody who is her relative. And if some harm is caused to the women, then those people who are relating to her, they will be also affected emotionally, right? Agar suppose that daughter and parents relationship, right? To meet any unlawful demand for dowry or other property, valuable security. So valuable security mein gold and all those things, cash can also come, right? So dowry or property, that ye property aap mere naam karwa do, otherwise I am doing the violence against you. So that violence is with an intention to put pressure कि माँ बाप अपनी बेटी की जान बचाने के लिए वो प्रॉपर्टी या पैसा या जो भी डिमांड करी जा रही है वो पूरी कर देंगे, जस्ट दैट कि उसके फैमिली मेम्बर्स खुश रहें, उसकी शादी बच जाए, एंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट कि उस लड़की की जान बच जाए. बिकॉज इफ दे आर नॉट गिविंग इट, कॉन्स्टेंटली द वायलेंस विल बी डन ऑन हर, एंड व्हाट विल बी द एंड रिजल्ट? दैट मे प्रूव fatal to her life, and at the end she may die. Right? So instead of, actually this is my opinion, instead of subjecting or to instead of fulfilling those demands, what should the parents do? Complaint, either in the civil recourse or under the criminal recourse, but they should complain and they should not fulfill such demands, because as it is said, it is unlawful. Moreover, providing dowry, demanding for dowry and giving dowry, both giving and taking dowry, both are punishable under law. 5 years imprisonment is the criminal punishment which is provided to them, but still it is done. And now it is done in the disguise of a gift which is given by the bride's parents to the groom parents. Now they don't name it as dowry, just the nomenclature has changed. The nature of the thing or the exchange is the same. They don't take it in the ambit of dowry so that they escape that punishment part. Effect of threatening the aggrieved person or any person related to her by any conduct mentioned in clause A or clause B. So any conduct that you are doing in above two clauses will have the effect of threatening. That means they will be put in a fear, constant fear. Otherwise injures or causes harm, physical or mental, to the aggrieved person. So if this is clause D, is a residuary clause, which we say रेसिड्यूरी क्लॉज मीन्स जो भी बचा कुचा है ना, अदरवाइज लिखा है ना. सो इन सब के अलावा भी अगर कुछ है, लाइक सपोज इफ देयर इज सम कंडक्ट और एक्ट और ओमिशन ऑफ द हस्बैंड विच is not falling clearly under these three clauses which are mentioned, that dowry demand भी नहीं है valuable security की, और ना ही जो बाकी चीज़ें दी हुई हैं कि टॉन्ट्स, वर्बल अब्यूज़, वो सब भी नहीं है, तो अब कहाँ जाएं. ऐसा नहीं है कि हम उसको कि अच्छा ए और बी और सी में नहीं कर रहा है, सो नाउ इट इज़ नॉट domestic violence and they will not come under the ambit of this act. No, to bring them still under the ambit of this act, residuary clauses are made in every act almost, so that they may not be spared and they may not escape from the ambit. So that is one of this कि जो इन सब के अलावा भी बचा है, if there are some circumstances of the case as such which are not falling directly under these three clauses, then it will fall under the word otherwise. ठीक है. So any act apart from these which injures or causes harm, physical or mental, to the person, that is also coming under the category of domestic violence. Then it recognizes how domestic violence affects women at multiple levels. Now it has told what is domestic violence. Now it will also tell that how such acts or omissions of domestic violence affect the women at multiple levels. Why multiple levels? Because it may also affect her emotionally, psychologically, mentally, and physical तो injury हुई ही है, right? And provide various support services. So how it affects and how we have to restore that effect, right? We have to bring her back to the position in which she was before such act of domestic violence was done against her, right? So that is the meaning of rehabilitation, to restore the position where the person was before such act of crime or any such violence act was done against the person. So in short, you can say support services means to provide support to the women so that they can deal with the situation, they can file a petition and seek civil remedies, and it may also help to reconcile. Fine. It may also help them to get some monetary relief so that they rehabilitate. Fine. Mandatory assistance is help by medical facilities and shelter homes. Why medical? In case of physical injuries. Such are the cases that women are burnt. 60% 80% burns होते हैं बॉडी में, जिसके बाद उसके बचने के चांसेस बहुत कम हो जाते हैं. सो ऐसे में तुरंत मेडिकल एड प्रोवाइड करना इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, सो दैट वट एवर आर द मीगियर और वेरी लेस चांसेस दे कैन ऑल्सो सर्वाइव, राइट? So shelter homes means where she is providing the shelter, because what happens is generally there is a tendency, as I told you, the social taboo associated with conserving the matrimonial house by the women or adjustments, and the social stigma of divorced wife or divorced women is so high. The stakes are so high that even देयर इज अ सेइंग कि यहाँ से तुम्हारी डोली उठी है लेकिन तुम्हारे ससुराल से तुम्हारी अर्थी उठनी चाहिए. दैट मीन्स कि यू विल डाई देयर. You should not come back to your paternal house. You should not, leave that matrimonial house or house of your husband in an angry state. कि मैं घर छोड़कर आ गई, कुछ लड़ाई हो गई, घर छोड़ दिया और अब बात कर रहे हैं कि हम रिश्ता तोड़ देंगे, बिकॉज आई कैन नॉट लिव विद दैट मैन. वट एवर मे बी द सर्कमस्टांसेस, डिसएग्रीमेंट्स और वट एवर इज द केस बिटवीन द हस्बैंड एंड वाइफ, बट द वाइफ इज ऑन अ डिसीजन दैट नाउ शी विल नॉट गो बैक टू द मैट्रिमोनियल हाउस. सो ऐसे भी पेरेंट्स होते हैं जो इन सब, even after the acts of domestic violence and the daughter telling them that मेरे साथ ये सारी चीज़ें हो रही हैं and I cannot survive here, and if for some greater duration that I will stay here, I will not be alive, but तब भी वो parents उसको support नहीं करते and they do not take her back to the paternal house. Then what? Then where she will go? Where she will seek shelter? So for that purpose, shelter homes are provided, who will provide her with all kind of assistance that she requires at the moment. Fine, you just need to call on the helpline number or get contact with the National Commission for Women, or do any such, even calling the police will give you help. ऐसे अवेयरनेस कैंप्स होने चाहिए, बिकॉज एंड इट्स द फॉल्ट ऑफ the parents also of the daughter, that they are not helping her when she actually needs their help, when she actually needs the care and nurture of the parents, the support of the parents. At that time they are not available, so the government steps in. Provision for legal aid. Legal aid means legal help, because everybody is not legally savvy. They do not know the provisions of law, they do not know the legal rights which are conferred upon them, or the provisions under which they can seek remedies. So the it can also be free legal aid if they are not able to afford the finances of a case, of a court case, lawyer fees or the documentation fees. And ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है, क्योंकि उनके पास अभी पैसे नहीं है ना, वो तो वायलेंस का शिकार होकर आई है. So in that case the legal aid, free legal aid also can be provided. Okay. Counseling on the direction of court. That means sometimes you may have seen counseling करता है कि जो भी आपके दिमाग में है, वट एवर टेंशंस और वट एवर ऑल इज गोइंग ऑन इन योर माइंड दैट इज अफेक्टिंग योर मेंटल वेल बींग इन अ नेगेटिव मैनर, उसको सॉर्ट आउट करने के लिए काउंसलिंग करी जाती है. सो दैट मे बी डन इफ द कोर्ट डायरेक्ट्स दैट शी इज लाइक, इट इज़ द डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ द कोर्ट इफ इट इज़ सेटिस्फाइड कि उसके मेंटल कंडीशन सही नहीं है, जो भी उसके साथ हुआ है उसका एक ट्रॉमा हो गया है, एंड शी इज़ नॉट एबल टू रिकवर फ्रॉम दैट. सो दिस काउंसलिंग कैन बी ऑफ अ ग्रेट हेल्प टू aid her to recover from the trauma of violence. कभी कभी ऐसा ट्रॉमा हो सकता है कि वो किसी आदमी को देखकर ही डर जाती है, चिल्लाने लगती है, राइट. सो ऐसा सब काउंसलिंग होगा, वो डर उसके दिमाग से निकलेगा, तभी वो आगे कुछ इवन अपनी टेस्टिमनी दे पाएगी, ताकि पता चले व्हाट ऑल शी हैज़ बीन सब्जेक्टेड टू, और फिर एक अच्छी पनिशमेंट या जो भी पेनल्टीज कोर्ट को देनी है वो दी जा सके, राइट. सो अच्छे रिलीफ्स और बेटर रिलीफ, इफेक्टिव रिलीफ तभी प्रोवाइड करे जा सकेंगे ना जब एक्चुअल में पता है कि क्या सारा कुछ हुआ है. प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर्स एंड सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स टू मेंटेन अ लिस्ट एंड फैसिलिटेट एक्सेस. सो प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर्स, they will protect her, they will provide her services. Okay, now the salient features we will do in the next video. Thank you so much.